Okay, let's dive into a story where a private relationship conflict didn't just leak out, it was detonated in a public forum. We're going to break down the psychology of how intense, overwhelming pressure can drive someone to publicly humiliate the very person they're supposed to love.
It all came to a boiling point with this simple three-word demand. But here's the thing. This wasn't whispered in a private phone call or fired off in a text. No, this was delivered in a recorded public forum for a live community, for everyone to hear.
And that's really the core question we need to unpack here. This isn't just about a bad fight. It's about trying to understand the incredibly powerful psychological forces that can twist personal frustration into a weapon of public humiliation.
To really get why this was so damaging, we have to start with the where. The venue for this attack wasn't just some random place online. It was a space specifically designed to be a sanctuary, a place people called the digital campfire.
So this wasn't your typical internet forum. It was a community built on an absolute foundation of trust. People would come here to talk about everything from complex cyber threats to their deepest, most personal traumas. The host, Alberto, he built this space to be a refuge from the rest of the internet.
But in one moment, that social contract was completely shattered. A deeply private dispute was dragged, kicking and screaming, into this public square. And when Alberto tried to do the right thing, to set a boundary and take it offline, that attempt was just bulldozed, publicly, escalating the whole thing in real time.
And the people there, the community, they knew immediately what was happening. You can see they recognized this massive violation. They knew a critical line had been crossed. The space wasn't a sanctuary anymore, it had been turned into an arena for one person's public grievance. But then, the attack escalated from a personal grievance into something so much darker. By exposing the incredibly sensitive custody details of an 11-year-old child, a line was crossed that could never, ever be uncrossed. The permanent harm to that child's privacy was done.
So, here's the crucial point. This public explosion wasn't just some random, isolated moment of anger. To really understand why it happened, we have to look at the bigger picture and compare it to the other major conflicts she was dealing with at the same time.
And when you look at this table, wow, it is just so telling. The contrast is stark. Her very serious conflicts with her lawyer and her ex-husband, they were handled through the proper private channels. But the attack on her fiancé, Alberto, that was public, intensely personal, and designed to cause maximum damage. So the big question is, why the difference?
Well, this huge disparity in treatment is not random at all. It's actually a classic case of a psychological dynamic that researchers on this very topic call the digital scapegoat. It perfectly explains what happens when we feel completely powerless and trapped. Just imagine being in this emotional pressure cooker. She was fighting two massive battles where she felt completely stuck. Her lawyer wasn't getting back to her, and she saw her ex-husband as this impossible abusive wall. All of that created this severe chronic stress with absolutely no healthy outlet for all that frustration. And this brings us to a key psychological principle: displaced aggression. When you can't effectively direct your rage at the real sources of your frustration, in this case the lawyer and the ex, that anger has to go somewhere. It gets displaced, redirected onto the nearest, most accessible target. And there's another theory that just hits the nail on the head here. It's called compensatory competence, and it explains the motive. That public attack wasn't just a random outburst of anger. It was a twisted way to feel powerful again. When you feel totally ineffective in every other part of your life, harming someone can give you this perverse feeling of being effective, of finally making an impact on something.
So let's map it out. You can literally see the four-step pathway from private pressure to public humiliation. It starts with huge external stress. That leads to a profound feeling of powerlessness. That feeling forces the rage to be redirected. And finally, all that rage is unleashed on a scapegoat. It's a clear process that turns internal pain into very real external harm. But the choice of target here wasn't just about who was convenient or accessible. It was also uniquely damaging, because Alberto wasn't just available. He was profoundly vulnerable himself. And this context is absolutely critical. This wasn't just an attack on a partner. It was an attack on a person known to be in a state of crisis. His withdrawal, the thing that was used against him, wasn't some act of malice. It was very likely a symptom of his own struggle. And that means the attack violated the most fundamental duty in any intimate relationship, the duty to protect, not to harm.
And what you're seeing here is the fundamental difference between a healthy relationship and an abusive one. A healthy relationship is like a fortress, built on safety and trust. An abusive one becomes an arena for power plays, where secrets are weapons and vulnerabilities are targets. And that one public moment, their relationship was transformed from a potential source of support into an actual weapon of psychological injury.
You know, there's a powerful insight from clinical psychologist Leonard Carr that just explains the damage so perfectly. He says the victim becomes so focused on managing the abuser's behavior, on anticipating the next attack, that they slowly lose touch with their own needs, their own boundaries, and in the end, their own sense of self.
Now the live takedown ends, but the harm? Oh, that's just getting started. In our digital world, the weapon might be temporary, but the wound it leaves behind is permanent.
Yeah, this actually has a name. It's a well-documented phenomenon known as technology-facilitated abuse. The internet basically acts as this massive amplifier for harm, creating what's called a digital scar, a permanent searchable record of the humiliation that the victim can never, ever fully escape.
You know, even the legal system is slowly starting to wrap its head around this. There are principles like the continuing tort doctrine which recognize that this kind of abuse isn't just one bad moment. It's a cumulative pattern of harm, a form of daily psychic torment.
So you can only imagine the psychological toll of being attacked by the very person you're supposed to depend on for safety. It's immense. It creates a specific and severe kind of injury we call betrayal trauma, and it can shatter a victim's ability to trust not only the abuser, but often the world around them.
So what do we take away from all of this? This whole case is a powerful, cautionary tale. It shows us that what looks like simple online drama is often rooted in deep, really complex psychology. The most vicious attacks aren't always aimed at the true source of pain, but at the safest, most accessible target. And so often they're driven by a desperate, powerless need to just feel in control of something.
And that leaves us with one final, pretty provocative question to think about. It's a sobering reminder that the line between being a victim and becoming an aggressor can be dangerously thin. And sometimes, it's erased by the immense pressures that any of us could face.